Hi, this is Daniela Wolf with Bestie Life, the podcast, and this is your community to support you through the little and not so little events that make up your day-to-day life. From the I've got this moments to the I just can't moments. We are here to empower all women to find and develop the skills they need to find peace, balance, and the bliss in their busy. Through solo episodes as well as interviews with amazing women who share their journey and their story and how it works for you. I hope you find the inspirations to make you laugh, think, as well as maybe rethink what you thought you knew, and connect as we realize that we are all living similar ups and downs and don't have to do it alone. So excited for you to hear this episode, and thanks so much for joining me today. Hi, this is Daniela with Bestie Life, the podcast, and today I'm so excited for you to meet Kate Smith. She is a mother, early childhood educator, certified children's yoga teacher, and founder of the Conscious Mamas Movement, which is an educational platform that empowers caregivers with mindful tools to raise the next generation of conscious humans. So her work guides parents to do their inner healing work, build their emotional literacy skills, and show up as the present parents that they want to be and that we all want to be. She combines her decades worth of experience in holistic health to model a way of living in parenthood. And she embodies the skills as a single mother to her adorable 2-year-old son, Jefferson. So thanks so much, Kate, for joining me here today.
I'm so happy to be here.
So I know that was a lot of information, very broad. Can you kind of narrow in a little bit specifically about your journey, what led you to this, and how you help parents with these skills?
Absolutely. So my son was 6 months old, and we were in a pandemic. And I really wanted to do work that was meaningful, that I felt like was what the world needed, my individual way to serve the world. And I also wanted to find a way that Jefferson and I could thrive financially. My marriage was completely falling apart. I didn't know how we were going to make money. I didn't know how we were going to do this. And so I started the Conscious Mamas Movement while he was sleeping. And I learned how to develop websites, and I learned all these things so that I could get us to a good place where we could thrive. And then the first year that our business was open, we moved 7 times, him and I, just trying to find safe housing. And, we were in a housing crisis in Asheville, North Carolina. And each, step along the way was teaching us really important internal skills. But the reason that I felt so drawn to emotional literacy skills, which is really the primary thing that we do, like we teach mindfulness and mindfulness skills through yoga for kids and for parents, but it's really how do we be in tune with our emotions, with our emotional needs, with what's going on in our bodies? How do we express them in healthy ways? Because it's a skill that most of us did not get when we were kids. And it often leads to, a lot of trauma and a lot of abuse when we get older. So it just sort of came from that.
That's great. And I love that you share that idea of emotional literacy. And I'll be honest, that's even a newer word for me to really talk about it that way. But I like normalizing the conversation about these things because we do all have feelings. I think sometimes people assume if they haven't been through something, they don't need that. And that's not the case. Even though what doesn't break us makes us stronger. And I know we've both been through some hard things that we've shared. And while it does a lot to bring us to these stronger places in this insight, I think being in tune with how you're feeling, even without having to go through that, is so important because it does help not only ourselves, but it teaches and models for our kids, even just like the simple difference between, they joke about being hangry, like, are you hungry? Or are you angry? And being able to know that difference allows you to address it in the way that's really going to help you solve it. Because if you go around being angry when you're really just hungry, you're never going to find the solution.
It's brilliant. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. And kids, so I've worked in early childhood education for about 10 years. And I started to realize that a lot of the emotional literacy skills can be taught to toddlers, to babies. And it just makes such a huge difference, like their ability to notice signs and signals in their bodies. And we mirror them as conscious parents. We mirror those signs and signals. So when they're angry, I might mirror to my son, like, I'm noticing that your shoulders are all the way up to your ears. And I'm noticing that your nose is all scrunched up. I'm noticing that you're holding your fists really tight. And I'm wondering if you're angry. Like, it looks like you're angry. And he doesn't have, a lot of verbal skills yet. So it is something that I would project an emotion onto him based off of his body cues. But, having that awareness of when things are happening in our body the mindfulness to know what emotion is coming up for us. Because like you said, Daniela, we all experience emotions, no matter what experiences, external experiences we have. We're all human and we all experience a range of emotions. And what happens when we don't know what emotions are happening is then those moments of reaction. That's the moments when we yell. That's the moments when we fight. Those are the moments when we don't show up as the people or the parents we want to be.
Right. And I like the fact that you use the words, I notice. You're not telling him you're not making him defensive in any way. Even though I know he's still too, as they get older, that accusation of, well, it's like when you tell someone to calm down, you've already ratcheted it up a couple notch. You're telling someone that they're tired is the sure sign that they're going to be like, no, I'm not, but just saying what you're noticing and letting them respond, as well as helping to give them the vocabulary so that as they get older, they have the words to express what they're feeling and not just the emotions.
Isn't that amazing too? I don't know if you've ever been in a partnership like this, but where your partner can say, like, I'm feeling angry right now. Like, this is what I'm like, we're owning our emotions. It's not because of anyone else. Like, I'm feeling this. This is my emotion. And this is what I need to do to get myself through it.
Yeah.
Can you just imagine a different world, a world where we all knew those skills? Like, that's the world that I'm creating right now. That is what we do. It's because I really want to see that as the normal.
Right. And I think too, the more you model it, your son will use those words when he talks to his friends, and they will use those words. I know with my students that I work with in my full-time job, like that is the script. I feel when you blank, because blank, and I need. There's nothing accusing the other person. You're owning all of it. And it does create such a different conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about it yesterday. I was holding my son and I was like getting things, and he hit me so hard in the head with a toy car. And I just screamed. Like, it was just like a complete reaction. I screamed, and then I put him down and I went, Jefferson, and he starts crying. And then I'm like, okay, all right, I'm coming back. And I just walked him through. I was like, I got really scared and I screamed, and I love you so much. And this really hurt. And sometimes when we hurt other people, this is what we say. And I love you. It was just sort of this moment of kind of re-encapsulating. Like, I get to have my feelings. Jefferson gets to have his feelings. I'm not sorry that I screamed. That was my body's reaction to being hit in the head, which is completely normal.
Yeah.
But to walk him through that, no matter what, I still love him. And we just held each other for 2 minutes and just breathed. So just, having the literacy to walk through those moments.
Right. Right. And how does the yoga play into all of that as well? Do you integrate that?
Absolutely. So yoga, I really take it from the perspective of body awareness and breath awareness. Yoga to me is this union between when we're mindful of our breath and we're mindful of our body at the same time. And so a lot of the skill sets that we use are yoga mindfulness based, especially as, the awareness skill, right, to be aware of what emotion we're feeling, but also as transitionary tools. So that for kids, we kind of transform them into these playful things. So we're already on anger. So, to be able to express that we're feeling anger. And then when we're ready to move through it, we use a yoga or mindfulness tool. So that could look like lion's breath, right? That's very common in a yoga practice, where you stick out your tongue and you take a big breath and then you go, and it's just this way, it's this understanding that emotions can get stuck in our bodies. If we do not express them, if we do not help them to move, they get stuck and then they start to store up. And that's why, we're at the grocery store and someone cuts us off and then all of a sudden we are livid. It's because we've been storing those emotions in our body, and at some point they have to release. So to be aware of when they're happening and in the present moment to be able to release them so that they don't get stuck, those are the tools that we can teach our kids and in really playful ways, whether that's through our breath, whether that's through dancing, whether that's through a yoga pose. It's just a profound skill set for any human to have.
Right. And even that laughter part of it, I think will probably come up with the kids as well. But it is so necessary. We don't realize our body needs a physical release to that stress cycle. Everyone has heard of fight or flight in some format, fight, flight, or freeze. There's fight, flight, freeze, fawn. There's different, variations of it. But ultimately that cycle needs closure. It needs a release. It needs some kind of resolution to that cycle. And I think in our fast-paced, busy, go society, we do lose sight of that need for some kind of release. And it might not be, okay, if you had a conflict with somebody, it might not be the resolution of that conflict, but you still need a way to get it out. Because that's where sometimes then, as kids get older, they get stomach pains, they get headaches, they get a physical response to that stress, not realizing the connection of it's because they didn't talk about how they were feeling there. There's an emotional part getting stored up and your body's looking for a way to get it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why, even if we're not conscious in those moments of when it's happening, having a regular physical movement practice will help, because it does help to release those energies, because you just spoke to it so well. The nervous system can only regulate after it's gone through its full cycle, like after it's gone through its movement process. And so when we expect kids to immediately calm down, that's just not realistic.
Right.
When we expect like that our kids just, fell down or something really hard happened for them, and then we just expect them to like calm down or to come back to regulation, like you're literally asking for something that's not physiologically natural.
Right. Absolutely. My daughter, when she was really young sometimes, and I could see she was fighting it as far as wanting to do that. I would almost tell her the opposite. She'd be still sitting there like, I'm going to stay mad. I'd be like, all right, then just don't smile. And I kept saying, well, just don't smile. And she'd look at me. I'd be like, don't you dare smile at me. Don't smile. And she would just start cracking up, because your body wants it, even if your brain's trying to dig its heels in and be stubborn about it.
I love that, because you brought up two great things, right? Like laughter is a super potent medicine. And also, like, I would love for us to live in a reality where it is okay to feel your emotions for as long as you want to. Like, that's the thing too, is that oftentimes, especially when we feel something that's hard, like sadness or grief or anger, we immediately want to rush out of it because it's frankly very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to sit in those things. And most of us have learned how to just continuously bypass our emotional responses and just distract ourselves, whether that's through music or through work or whatever it is. And then we're afraid to be still. We get to the point where we're afraid to be still because we know that when we're still, that's when things come up, because then there's space for it.
Right.
And so if we can teach our kids, it's like, it's okay to be uncomfortable. Like, it's okay to sit in the uncomfortability of feeling sad or of feeling angry or heartbroken.
Well, and definitely I see as kids get older, I work with teenagers primarily, it turns into anxiety then, not being able to sit in uncomfortable feelings is the definition of anxiety. And definitely that's what creeps up when you wake up at 2 a.m. are all those horrible thoughts, which is why you can't fall back to sleep. And so being able to sit with uncomfortable, you're helping to prepare yourself and your family to not have anxiety or to be able to work through it, because the things that cause you anxiety don't go away. It's just a matter of how you cope with it.
How you cope with it. I love that. And there is just such an important need right now. So I'm really glad that you do this work with teens, because there's such a need to have anxiety awareness and skills. And that's, the piece. So our business is yoga mindfulness based, but then we also bring in all of this holistic health awareness. So we take experts from these different modalities to bring us practical tools that we can use, in these instances, right? So, for anxiety, I constantly think about this point that you can use in acupressure, and it's called Shenmen. It's on the top of your ears, and you can use, lavender essential oil or neroli essential oil or bergamot essential oil, and you just place it on the point, and you breathe, and it helps to regulate your nervous system. So having these skills of like, okay, I know that I'm feeling anxious right now, emotional literacy. I would like to, calm myself down, or this is a moment that I'd really like to, feel better. I don't necessarily, nobody likes feeling anxious. It is very uncomfortable. So to have those skill sets of like, okay, this is something that I know that is going to bring me back to calm. My son is obsessed with essential oils. He's starting to get very intuitive about it as well. Like this last week, because I use essential oils all the time, and he constantly gets things at daycare, like little viruses. And he kept like picking up the frankincense, which is an incredible immune system builder and antiviral. And he was just like smelling it all the time and just like patting it all over his chest. Like, he knows what he needs.
Yeah, I love this. And that was genius. So if you just listen to this part, stop, rewind, take notes, because that actionable step that you just gave, Kate, of how to help work through anxiety, those are those little things that will make a huge, huge impact. I'm definitely writing those down and checking out those essential oils myself, because we all need it. And I love just the simplicity of it's not a huge lift. It's just an understanding and an action.
Yes. It's just having those, like, to feel empowered with those skills too. I mean, that's, you and I both know what it feels like to, really want to, take care of your baby or really want to help, and you just don't have the tools. It is the worst feeling, like when your child is sick and there's nothing that you feel like you can do about it. I mean, it is terrible. And you and I both know what that feels like. And so that's another piece of like just all of these skills are out there, and we really work in the Conscious Mamas movement to compile them so that they're easily accessible to parents and caregivers.
That's fantastic. And definitely, I'm so excited to share your links with all my listeners and everything. But just to back up a little bit, like, what do you do for you? Because I think sometimes too, being in these professions where we help other people with the skills, people want to know, well, what are you doing then? What works for you? Because I think it shares just another opportunity of what's available.
Everything that I teach and everything that we offer comes directly from me doing it because I needed it.
Okay.
So
yeah.
It's very
so
much
it's all well tested.
It's all tested. It's all, just like all of our recipes are tested on Jefferson. Like it's all, very much embodied for the things that we need. So, for me, self-care, we talked about this in the podcast that we just did. It's very fluid, and it's very much a part of how I live in day to day. I have these certain routines because I'm so dedicated to being the type of person, before I became a mom, who burned sustainably. Like I want to be somebody who lives sustainably well, who I don't ride big highs of like, intense energy and like high caffeine, and then I crash down to the floor. So that's been a multi-layered process for me over the last several years. But I mean, to just give you a general overview, like I wake up in the morning and I scrape my tongue and I drink a big glass of water and I make my bed, and then I do Qigong to open up my energy centers. And then I do, some sort of an energetic practice to contain my energy fields to protect it from, the outside world. And I'll do some pelvic floor therapy because, that's something that I need for my body.
Yeah.
I'll exercise. I'll cuddle with my son. We'll just have this intentional time. I journal because for me, that's like my mental health practice, is to be able to just reflect on my own thoughts. And yeah, so every day is hydration, every day is movement, every day is nature. But really it comes back down to like also asking myself what I need throughout the day. That's been huge. I think so many parents and caregivers, we can hyper focus on the needs of our kids and the needs of others, and especially as women, because that's what we're conditioned to do. So to have the awareness of like, well, actually, what do I need now is a huge game changer.
Absolutely. And taking just the time and the initiative to invest in what we need. Because again, we'll invest in our kids, we'll invest in our businesses before we invest in ourselves. And then we wonder why we just don't have it together.
And we have to sort of flip the script, just like you're saying, like we have to reprioritize our own needs. And that's hard. Like it kind of comes up against this thing of like, well, then I'm not as good of a mom. If like I'm prioritizing my needs over my son's, it's like, actually, no, I've realized, especially as being a single parent and you're the only caregiver to a small child, is like, no, I need to prioritize my needs over your wants. Like my need to feed myself is over your want for me to fix this toy for you right now. My need to sleep is over your want for me to give you more milk that you don't need in the middle of the night. It's like we have to that's been a really powerful reframe.
I love that. It's so applicable, and you can visualize it. You can see where by taking that time for yourself, you really are investing and giving back to your son when you're able to get back to him. And now I always talk about gratitude as a big part of self-care as well, because I do think just being able to remember those good things, remember those positive moments, because it can be hard in the course of a day. You started off great, you do your routine, and then this happens, and then that happens, and you get in a fight, with somebody, or you snap at somebody, and you focus on those negatives, and being able to center back on what went well, I think can really have a positive impact. What would you say are like your top 2 or 3 things that you're the most grateful for?
I've had many moments this week of simply just crying about how much better our life is right now after just this insane year of so much moving. So right now, the top ones for me that I'm really grateful for are the ease, like the levels of pieces of ease in our life that we didn't have before, that we haven't had for a year, having stable housing, that we know that we're safe and that we can afford, or having a dishwasher. So I'm not sanitizing bottles and washing every dish every day. Like I am so grateful for the level of ease and support that we have not had access to this last year. It makes it, even more powerful to notice.
Yeah. And I love that, because ease can transcend to so many different areas. And definitely I'm so happy for you. And so just sending so much love that you are able to find that this year. So that's fantastic. So how can people find you, Kate? How can they start working with you and helping to transform themselves and their families in this emotional, intuitive way?
Absolutely. So we're on Instagram at Conscious Mamas Movement. We post lots of great resources. We have an extensive blog, we have an extensive podcast, and then we also have a membership where people can get digestible resources sent straight to their email inbox every week. And as a member, you also get access to all of these emotional resource skills, yoga for your family, yoga for your kids, emotional literacy skills, and a directory to amazing, coaches and caregivers and people if you want to dive deeper into a specific topic.
That's fantastic. I love the range of options and resources that you offer for families. So that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Kate, for joining me today.
Thanks, Daniela.
Thanks so much again for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know any questions or comments that you have. Also, if you can please leave an Apple 5-star review so that this episode can be shared with more women. There's 2 quotes that I love. Alone we may be strong, but together we are stronger, as well as when women support each other, incredible things happen. So let's be stronger and incredible together, as well as maybe just have some fun along the way. Thanks so much and talk to you soon. Bye.